She could still hear the echo of his boots long after he had stormed out, the man she was forced to call her husband. The man she never chose. Her heart pounded not from fear, but from fury she could no longer hide. Somewhere deep inside, the fire that man tried to break was still burning. Her wrist burned from the rough rope cutting into her skin. Her blouse hung in tatters, torn during the struggle, smeared with dirt and blood from the bruises on her arms and legs. In the chaos, she'd fought back fiercely, and the brute had torn her skirt away, leaving her exposed beneath the shredded blouse as she stumbled toward freedom. The air inside that small wooden house smelled of whiskey, sweat, and cruelty. It wasn't a home, it was a prison. Her stepfather had orchestrated this nightmare. A gambler with no soul left to wager. He traded her life to settle his debts, then turned away as she was dragged off. He didn't even glance back. When the brute left to fetch water, she seized her chance. Her fingers clawed at the rope until her skin split. But she refused to stop. With a final tug, she broke free, and she ran, barefoot through the choking dust, across parched fields and jagged brush that tore at her feet. The thorns snagged what little remained of her skirt, stripping it away until only the tattered blouse clung to her. The Texas sun climbed high, scorching her shoulders, stealing her breath. Her bare feet bled from thorns and sharp stones, each step a battle against exhaustion. She stumbled often, her vision blurring. The memory of his cruel grip kept her moving, and the thought of his return drove her forward. But she pressed on. Every step pulled her farther from that hell. Her lungs felt like sandpaper. The horizon danced in heat, teasing her with mirages of water that never came. Still, she kept moving, chasing the faint scent of freedom. Hours later, the vast land stretched before her. A lone ranch emerged under the relentless sky, its fences weathered and broken, the windmill groaning in the heat. And there, a man sat on his porch, hat low, resting in the shade. When he spotted her staggering through the gate, he froze. She was young, battered, cloaked in dust and bruises, her hands still bound behind her back, her blouse barely clinging to her frame. He dropped his cup, hurried forward, and caught her just as her legs gave way. "Easy now. You're safe here," he said softly. He sliced the rope from her wrists and helped her into his chair, noticing her tattered state. He quickly shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders, shielding her from the sun and prying eyes. But before he could ask anything, she turned her gaze to the horizon, eyes wide with fear. "Get inside first." Then she gasped. The old rancher's chest tightened. He didn't know who she was or what she had fled, but he could sense that danger rode the dust on that road. Who was chasing her, and what would he do when the past she escaped came knocking at his door? Zeke carried her inside, his heart pounding harder than it had in years. The air in his cabin was still and dry. He laid her down on the old couch near the window. The light from outside fell across her face. That is when he saw it. The bruises, the rope marks, and the fear that still held her breath hostage. He poured a little water into a tin cup and held it out. "Here, take it slow." Her hand shook as she drank. When she tried to speak, her voice cracked. "I didn't want to marry him," she whispered. "He said I was his debt, that I belonged to him." Zeke looked away, jaw tight. He had seen men like that all his life, men who thought money made them gods. He went to the corner, opened an old chest, and pulled out one of his shirts. It was clean, faded from the sun, and soft from years of wear. "Here, put this on," he said gently. "It might be a little big, but it's yours for now." He wasn't used to kindness anymore. Life had taken most of it from him, but something about her trembling hands made him remember the man he used to be. When she looked at him, there was something fragile in her eyes, like she wanted to believe him but couldn't yet. Outside, the windmill creaked, a slow rhythm that filled the silence. Zeke sat down across from her. "You got a name, miss?" She hesitated. "Clara," she said softly. "Clara May." He nodded. "Well, Clara May. You found the right gate to run through." She tried to smile but couldn't. Her shoulders trembled. Zeke didn't push her. He just sat there, watching the dust drift through the light, letting her breathe again. For the first time since she had run, she felt a hint of safety, not the kind that came with walls, but the kind that lived in someone's silence. Still, her eyes kept flicking toward the door. Every creak made her flinch. Every sound outside reminded her of him. The man she had escaped, the man who wasn't done yet. Zeke noticed. He set his cup down and said quietly, "You're safe here. I promise." But the way she looked at the window told him something he already feared. She didn't believe him. Not yet. Because somewhere out there, on that hot Texas road, a horse was coming closer. And whoever was riding it was not coming in peace. Zeke had seen storms before, but never one like this. The wind outside changed, the kind of wind that carries trouble in its teeth. Claire sat near the window, still wearing his old shirt. Her hair hung loose, her eyes fixed on the horizon. She didn't say a word, but her hands wouldn't stay still. She kept twisting her fingers together like she was trying to hold herself in one piece. Then they both heard it. Hooves. Slow at first, then heavier, closer, a single rider. Zeke stepped out onto the porch. The man on the horse stopped at the gate. It was him, the one she had run from. Face red, eyes wild, and whiskey dripping from his breath. "Where is she?" "Old man," his voice cracked the air like a whip. Zeke didn't move. "She's safe now. You turn that horse around and ride home before I lose my patience." The man sneered. Zeke stepped forward, his voice low but firm from years of facing tougher foes. "I've dealt with worse than you. Try me." With a swift move honed from old soldier days, he disarmed the man before a punch sent him sprawling. "She's mine, bought and paid for." Zeke's eyes narrowed. "You don't buy people, mister. Not in my land." The rider jumped down, lunging toward the porch. Zeke met him halfway. No guns, no warning. Just one hard swing that sent the man face first into the dirt. When he tried to get up, Zeke kicked his gun away and pointed toward the road. "Go, before you leave more of your pride behind." The man spat blood, stumbled to his horse, and shouted through clenched teeth, "You'll regret this, but I'll come back with the law." Zeke didn't answer. He just watched him ride off, dust rising behind like a warning from hell. Back inside, Clara stood trembling. She had seen men fight before, but never for her. Zeke walked in quietly, wiped the sweat from his brow, and poured 2 cups of water. "Don't worry," he said softly. "He won't get far. Not today." Clara wanted to thank him, but the words stuck in her throat. For the first time, she felt like someone had chosen to stand between her and the dark. But deep down, he knew the man would return, and next time, he wouldn't be alone. Outside. The sun began to drop behind the hills. The sound of the windmill came back, creaking slow, steady. Clara finally breathed, but the air still felt heavy, like the calm before another storm. Zeke looked out the window, voice low. "Trouble's not done with us yet." So what happens when the law rides in and the truth finally meets the dust? If you've been listening this far, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way, you won't miss what happens next. And hey, while you're here, grab a cup of tea or coffee. Tell me what time it is where you are and where you're listening from. I'd sure like to know who's out there riding with us tonight. By sunrise, the ranch was quiet again. Too quiet. Zeke didn't sleep much that night. Neither did Clara. Every crack of wood, every sound of the wind felt like a warning that something was coming. And then, around noon, they heard it. 2 horses this time. The first one carried the man from yesterday. The second carried the law. Zeke stepped outside, his hand resting near his hip. Not on a gun, just steady. Clara stood by the window, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The sheriff dismounted first, tall, gray-haired, with a badge that had seen more dust than shine. It was Marshal Wade, Zeke's old war buddy, the only man he still called friend. They'd fought side by side in the war, shared scars and silence, and Wade knew Zeke's word was as good as gold. "Morning, Zeke," Wade said. "Morning, Sheriff," Zeke replied, slow and calm. The man beside Wade cut in. "This old fool hit me, took my wife, and kept her here. I want her back. The law's on my side." His voice was sharp, full of liquor and pride. Zeke didn't answer. He just looked at Wade. Wade took off his hat, sighed, and turned to Clara. "Ma'am, is that true?" Clara stepped out from the doorway. Her face was pale but steady, her hands still trembling. "No," she said, voice shaking but clear. "I was never his wife. He tried to force me. I ran away before he could." Wade studied her for a long moment. Then he turned back to the man. "You got proof of marriage." The man's jaw twitched. "Nobody needs paper." "Everybody knows." "Stop right there," Wade interrupted. "In this county, we don't trade women for debts. You best ride out before I decide to teach you the difference between law and shame." The man's face turned red. His words stuck somewhere between rage and fear. He spit into the dirt, then climbed back on his horse. "I'll remember this, old man," he growled, looking at Zeke. Wade just said, "Make sure you ride far enough so we don't have to remember you too." For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the horses seemed to listen to the silence, as if the land itself had chosen sides. As the sound of hooves faded into the hills, Clara let out a breath she had been holding for days. Her eyes filled, not from fear this time, but from something new. Relief. Wade looked at Zeke and smiled. "You always did have a way of finding trouble." Zeke chuckled softly. "Maybe trouble just keeps finding me." Clara stood there, her hands clasped, her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. For the first time, she didn't look lost. She looked like she belonged. But peace never stays long on a ranch like that, and sometimes the hardest part isn't the fight you win. It's the one that sneaks in after sunset. What will happen when that peace begins to break? That night, the ranch was quiet again. The air smelled of dust, wood, and rain that never came. Zeke sat on the porch, oil lamp flickering beside him. Inside, Clara moved softly, her bare feet whispering across the floor. For the first time since she arrived, there was no fear in her step. One morning, she helped Zeke mend a broken fence, her hands trembling at first, but growing steady as he showed her the knots. That night, she shared a piece of her past, how her stepfather's gambling had stolen her freedom. Zeke listened, his silence a steady anchor, and the next day he found her a pair of old boots, a quiet gesture that made her eyes soften. She brought out 2 cups of coffee, handed one to him, and sat down. The stars were brighter than they had been in a long time. Neither of them spoke. They just listened to the night. After a while, Clara said, "Do you ever get tired of being alone?" Zeke smiled faintly, eyes still on the horizon. "Used to. Then I got used to the silence. But tonight, I kind of like the sound of company." Clara smiled for real this time. It wasn't the smile of a scared girl anymore. It was soft, alive, full of something that looked like peace. In the days that followed, she helped around the ranch. Some mornings she sang while feeding the chickens, a voice soft as the dawn wind. Zeke never said it out loud, but that sound filled the house more than any prayer. Fed the horses, fixed the fence, cooked simple meals. Zeke showed her how to mend leather, how to ride, how to listen to the land. Little by little, the ranch didn't feel so empty anymore. And little by little, the old man who thought he was done with life began to live again. Sometimes healing doesn't come with medicine. It comes with someone sitting beside you when the world goes quiet. It comes with trust, with kindness, with a second chance you didn't think you deserved. One evening, Clara looked at him and said, "Thank you for saving me." Zeke shook his head slowly. "Guess you saved me too." The sun dipped low, painting the ranch in gold. As they sat in silence, a peace hard-earned, fragile but real. 2 souls sat under a Texas sunset, the ranch bathed in gold. Their silence a bond stronger than words. No promises, no big words, just peace. Time kept passing, the days slower, softer. They didn't talk about the past anymore. They just lived. And somehow that was enough. Maybe that's what love really is. Not fireworks, not fancy vows, just staying, just choosing not to walk away when you could. So what do you think? Do you believe people can start over, no matter how far gone they are? Do you believe kindness can still change someone's life? If you do, then maybe give this story a like so more folks can hear it. And if you want to ride with me through the next story, hit that subscribe button and come along for another journey across the Old West. Now, pour yourself another cup of tea or coffee. Take a deep breath and tell me in the comments what time it is where you are and where you're listening from tonight.